One morning in February 2026, millions of people in the Philippines woke up to the most extraordinary sports news they had ever seen. Not a match result, not a ranking update, not even a trophy. A number $1.6 billion attached to the name of a 20-year-old girl from Quezon City who had spent the last 12 months quietly rewriting the history of Filipino tennis one match at a time. The post spread the way wildfire spreads when the wind is right, instantly, totally, unstoppably. The comment sections filled with tears and national pride. People who had watched every single one of her matches, who had stayed up until 1 in the morning in Manila just to see her play in Dubai, who had cried when she won and cried harder when she lost. Those people were sharing this story with trembling hands, certain they were watching another chapter of an already remarkable story unfold in real time. There was only one problem. None of it was true. Not a single word. And once that truth surfaced, once the smoke cleared and the fabrication was exposed, what came out the other side wasn't just a story about fake news. It was a mirror held up to the internet, to the sports industry, to celebrity culture, and to the dark machinery that feeds on the growth of icons. The real story is more disturbing than the lie, and more revealing than anyone involved wanted it to be. Stay with me, because if you think you already know this one, I promise you, you don't. To understand why a fabricated billion-dollar deal with a Filipino tennis player could explode the internet in 2026, you first have to understand what Eala means to people. Not just what she's accomplished statistically, though the statistics are genuinely extraordinary, but what she represents to an entire country that had never had this before. Eala was born on May 23, 2005 in Quezon City. She grew up in a household that understood athletic commitment from the inside. Her father played professional basketball. Her mother had been a competitive tennis player. The foundation was there from childhood, but foundation is just the beginning. What you build on it is the whole story. By the time she was 17, she had won the Junior US Open. She was the first Filipino to reach a Junior Grand Slam singles final. She was training at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca under one of the most rigorous development systems in world tennis. The talent was real, and the people paid to evaluate these things could see it clearly. But junior tennis and professional tennis are different world leaders, tech billionaires. And everyone who follows the sport knows that the distance between junior success and senior breakthrough has swallowed more promising careers than anyone wants to count. Eala made the crossing. In 2025, she arrived at the Miami Open as a wild card ranked 143rd in the world outside the automatic entry threshold, handed an invitation and essentially told, "Here's your chance, let's see what you've got." What she gave them was one of the most staggering weeks any wild card has ever produced in the history of the WTA Tour. She defeated Jana Wickmeyer, then Madison Keys, the reigning US Open champion, then Aryna Sabalenka, who was ranked second in the world at the time. 3 major Grand Slam champions, straight sets, 1 tournament, wild card. The first time any wild card in WTA Tour history had done that. She made the semifinals, the first Filipino player ever to reach the last 4 of a WTA 1000 event. She broke into the top 100 for the first time, won her first WTA 125 title, became the first Filipino player to win a Grand Slam singles match in the Open era at the US Open. She started 2025 ranked 143rd and ended it ranked 50th, the highest any Filipino tennis player had ever been ranked in the sport's history. By February 2026, she was ranked 31st in the world. Career high, still climbing. But here's what the numbers don't tell you. The numbers don't tell you about the stadiums. When Eala plays in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Miami, Manila, or Guadalajara, it doesn't matter where it is on the map, the Filipino fans show up like she's playing in their backyard. They book flights, they stay up through the night, they buy tickets to tournaments in cities they've never visited. They cry in languages that don't have a direct word for what they're feeling when they watch her win. They cry just as hard when she loses. One fan said it in a comment thread that went quietly viral on its own merits, no fabrication required. Eala is the most popular tennis player right now. Not Golf, not Swiatek. She lost at the Miami Open, she beat Madison Keys, she brought the Philippines into conversations about tennis that didn't include the Philippines before. That's the ecosystem into which the fake news machine inserted itself. A community of millions of devoted, emotionally invested supporters who had waited a long time for someone like this. People who trusted what they read, because up to now the real story had been extraordinary enough that extraordinary claims felt plausible. That trust was the product the machine was selling. Imagine opening your phone one morning and reading that a member of one of the world's wealthiest royal families, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the Abu Dhabi royal, whose fortune is measured in tens of billions and who personally owns Manchester City Football Club, had offered a 20-year-old Filipino athlete a personal deal worth $1.60 billions. Not a standard sports sponsorship, not an endorsement contract with a major brand. $1.6 billion, a $1 billion upfront payment, followed by $100 million annually for 10 years, in exchange for Eala relocating to Abu Dhabi and serving as the figurehead of a newly created tournament called the Abu Dhabi Diamond Tennis Championship. The post spread across Facebook in days. The numbers are staggering: thousands of shares within hours, tens of thousands of likes, comment sections overflowing with Filipinos weeping with pride, writing in all caps about how their daughter had been recognized by one of the most powerful men alive, how the world was finally seeing what they had always known. People who had watched Eala lose a close match in Dubai just weeks earlier and felt the particular ache of almost those same people now felt the particular rush of vindication. Their girl, their icon, bigger than anyone had imagined, bigger than a ranking, bigger than a trophy, $1.6 billion big. It was a perfectly engineered, emotional detonation, and it was entirely fabricated. Vera Files, one of the Philippines' most respected fact-checking organizations, investigated. Their findings were unambiguous: no documentation of any meeting between Sheikh Mansour and Eala, no statement from Eala's camp, no WTA announcement, no confirmation from any credible news organization anywhere in the world. The story had no source because the story had no foundation. It was constructed from a stock image, a large number, and two names famous enough to make the imagination run wild. And it wasn't isolated. At roughly the same time, a separate post claimed Eala had signed a $45 million deal with Wilson Sporting Goods, complete with a story about Wilson engraving a racket with the words Philippine icon exclusively for her. Vera Files investigated that too. False. She remained under contract with Babolat. Wilson had made no such agreement. Another post claimed Emirates Airlines had signed her to an endorsement deal. Fabricated. Another said she had donated millions to the homeless population of Quezon City after winning a tournament in Eastbourne. Manufactured. Another featured AI-generated images showing Eala embracing a man named Marco, supposedly a cancer patient who had sold his motorcycle just to see her play. The images weren't real, Marco didn't exist, and here's the detail that revealed the carelessness of whoever created them. Eala is left-handed. In the AI-generated photos, she was signing a tennis racket with her right hand. The machine had been running for months. It had just produced its most explosive piece of content yet. This wasn't random. This wasn't a single person with a grudge or a teenager playing around with an image generator. What had been circling Eala for months was something far more structured, more deliberate, and more lucrative than most people realized at the time. Rappler and The Nerve, two of the Philippines' most rigorous investigative outlets, had been tracking it. What they found was a network of Facebook pages, tennis-themed accounts with names like Flow Tennis and Tennis Mood that had built enormous followings, not by reporting accurate tennis news, but by manufacturing emotionally resonant narratives, specifically engineered around Eala. The formula was precise, and once you see it, impossible to unsee. Step 1. Build a genuine audience of Filipino tennis fans who are hungry for content about their idol. Post real match clips, real rankings updates, real celebrations of her wins. Earn trust. Accumulate followers. Create a community of people who believe they're following a source that cares about the same things they care about. Step 2. Once the audience is large enough and emotionally engaged enough, start injecting fabricated stories designed to generate maximum response. Pride bait. Fantasy-level contract announcements. Stories about billionaires recognizing her worth. AI-generated emotional scenes, content specifically calibrated to make Filipino supporters feel seen, vindicated, and overwhelmed. Step 3. Harvest the engagement. Hundreds of shares, thousands of comments, tens of thousands of reactions. All of that traffic redirected to external websites, layered with advertisements. The more outrage, pride, and emotion the content generates, the more clicks it drives, the more money the pages make. What these networks understood, and this is the part that is both cynical and genuinely accurate, is that in 2026, people don't always verify before they share. Especially when they're moved, especially when the story confirms something they already believe and want to be true. The billion-dollar deal narrative triggered the purest possible expression of Filipino national pride, the idea that their daughter, the girl from Quezon City who had climbed from 143rd in the world to 31st through sheer skill and will, had been recognized by one of the wealthiest and most powerful men alive as worth more than most countries generate in a year. It was designed to bypass critical thinking entirely. It worked exactly as designed. What these networks didn't fully account for, or perhaps didn't care about, was who else would get pulled into their blast radius. One of the most damaging fabrications targeted veteran GMA news anchor Mel Tiangco, one of the most respected journalists in the Philippines. A fake post claimed Tiangco had gone on television and publicly called Eala vile and self-centered. It claimed Eala had responded angrily and emotionally. Neither thing happened, none of it. Tiangco had never said anything of the sort about Eala, whom she had spoken about publicly only with warmth and admiration. Tiangco was forced to appear on national television on 24 Horas, one of the Philippines' most watched evening news programs, to publicly refute a lie about herself that had spread to hundreds of thousands of people. On air, she was measured and direct. She is valued by Filipinos. She deserves that and more. The incident was a sharp reminder of something that often gets lost in discussions about misinformation. The victims aren't only the primary target. The fake news machine had now dragged a beloved national journalist into a controversy she had nothing to do with. forcing her to spend credibility and airtime correcting a fabrication about a conversation that never happened. At the same time, the WTA itself found itself under a different kind of scrutiny. The Dubai Tennis Championship scheduling decisions had drawn criticism from Eala's fanbase, and it was criticism with legitimate grievance behind it. Tournament organizers had scheduled Eala's quarter-final match against Coco Gauff, one of the most anticipated matchups of the early 2026 season, as the opening match of the evening session, rather than the headline finale. For fans in the Philippines, this meant staying up until 1 in the morning just to watch the match. For a player who was arguably the biggest individual draw in women's tennis at that moment, a player whose presence alone was filling stadiums across 3 continents, the decision read as a failure of recognition. Tennis publications noticed, the WTA circuit and Dubai's tournament organizers don't have it easy, but if their goal is to capitalize on Eala's growing popularity, they cannot keep making these errors. The comment sections around that critique were full of supporters who had spent years watching the sport fail to amplify its own most exciting stories. The scheduling dispute tapped into a frustration that ran deeper than one tournament, a sense that the structures designed to promote women's tennis were consistently behind their own stars. None of this was manufactured, all of it was real, and all of it converged on one person. There was a moment when Eala could have turned the noise into her own content. She could have issued an aggressive statement through her management. She could have posted a clap back. She could have named the pages, demanded accountability, or let the righteous anger of a young woman whose image had been hijacked without consent drive the narrative. A lot of athletes would have. Instead, when she addressed the misinformation, her response was quiet, measured, and because of that restraint, far more devastating than anything loud could have been. I don't really have control over it. I don't have control over what other people post. I know there have been a lot of fake news things. It's concerning because sometimes I see them get a lot of likes and it's difficult to differentiate when you're just seeing something online. I know people can get misled. She paused. Then, I guess my advice would be to just try to look for reputable news sources and try to follow the trustworthy outlets. That's all I can really say. 5 sentences. No anger, no performance, no press conference theatrics. Just a 20-year-old woman who had watched a parallel version of herself be constructed on the internet for months, a version that signed billion-dollar contracts, feuded with legendary journalists, received donations from sheiks, and existed entirely in the space between a stock photo and a number, calmly stating the only guidance she thought she could offer, and then returning to the practice court. After her loss to Coco Gauff in Dubai, a 0-6-2-6 result that she absorbed without deflection, she didn't hide. She acknowledged the gap directly in her post-match interview. I think the level difference was quite visible. That doesn't mean that I'm so far from these players. Not the words of someone defeated. The words of someone who had looked at a problem clearly and was already working out how to solve it. And on Instagram, rather than posting about contracts or controversies, she wrote about what she had actually experienced in Dubai. The privilege of competing in front of people who see themselves in you. The entire scandal, the fabricated billions, the fake images, the drag journalists, the scheduling controversy, all of it fell away in front of that single sentence. Because that's where the real story had always been. Not in the numbers someone invented, in the people who showed up. Here is what is actually true about Eala's career earnings and sponsorships. For the record, as of early 2026, her career prize money stood at approximately $1.49 million, significant for her age and trajectory, meaningful in context, and entirely unsexy compared to the fantasy figures being manufactured online. Her actual sponsors, Babolat, Nike, Globe Telecom, Bank of the Philippine Islands, and local brand Juice are genuine partnerships built on real performance and real belief in a real athlete. They are not mythology, they are agreements made by organizations that watched her climb from 143rd to 31st in the world and decided they wanted to be attached to where she's going. The actual billions that matter in Eala's story aren't monetary, they're the moments. Becoming the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles match in the Open era, the first to reach a WTA 1000 semi-final, the first to break into the top 100, defeating Keys, Sabalenka, Schneider, Paolini, players who had won Grand Slams, spent years in the top 5 and arrived at each match expecting to win, beginning a year ranked 143rd and ending it at 50th, arriving at Indian Wells 2026 and defeating the world number 1 6-2, 6-1 in 58 minutes in her first appearance at the tournament. Those are the numbers that define her. No one needed to fabricate them. They were already extraordinary. Let's step back from the noise and ask the harder question. Why did it work? Not why was the fake news created? The answer to that is depressingly simple. Money, engagement, advertising revenue. But why did it spread the way it did? Why did millions of people share a story that with 30 seconds of searching could have been identified as false? The answer is that the machine found something real and weaponized it. There is a specific kind of celebrity that emerges when an athlete becomes a symbol before they've finished proving themselves as a player. Muhammad Ali had it, Serena Williams had it, Naomi Osaka carries it now, and in 2026 Eala carries it too, the weight of being not just a tennis player but a mirror in which an entire nation sees its own potential reflected back. That weight creates a particular vulnerability. When you represent something that large, anything attached to your name feels possible. A $1 billion deal from an Abu Dhabi royal? Why not? She's already done everything else that seemed impossible. The fans weren't being naive, they were being human asterisk. They wanted to believe because the real story had already taught them that the extraordinary was achievable. The fake news machine understood that perfectly. It reverse-engineered the emotional architecture of an entire fan base and built a lie that fit inside it like a key in a lock. And in doing so, it exposed something the WTA and the broader sports industry has not fully grappled with. When an athlete becomes this visible, this quickly, the systems designed to manage and protect that visibility don't automatically scale with the attention. There was no infrastructure in place to flag the fabrications before they spread. No rapid response mechanism to push the truth into the same channels as the lies. No coordinated effort between the tour, the players' team, and credible media to contain the damage in real time. The scheduling mistake in Dubai was a smaller version of the same structural failure, a sport that hadn't built systems fast enough to match the speed of its own star's ascent. Through all of it, the fake billions, the AI images, the drag journalist, the scheduling controversy, the viral outrage, one thing didn't change. Eala went to work. After Dubai, she flew to her next event. She sat down with her coach and discussed what needed fixing. She trained, she competed, she improved. She posted about the privilege of competing in front of people who see themselves in her, and then she closed her phone and went to practice. She is 20 years old, ranked 31st in the world, still rising at a pace that even optimistic projections hadn't anticipated. She has not yet reached a Grand Slam quarterfinal. She has not yet defended a major title. She has not yet spent a single week in the world's top 10. All of that is still ahead of her. The final version of Eala is not the one that defeated the world number 1 in 58 minutes at Indian Wells. It's not the one who answered fabrications with quiet grace and went back to the practice court. These are the opening pages of a story that has many chapters left to be written. She said her goals simply and without hesitation, in an interview earlier in 2026. The obvious answer, which has always kind of been my answer, is to win slams and to be world number 1. Those are everyone's dream, and I consider myself to be quite ambitious. She didn't need a fabricated deal to be remarkable. She already was remarkable. And no algorithm, no engagement farm, no fake image of a left-handed player signing a racket with her right hand. None of it changes that. It only reveals how badly people want to be part of a story that is genuinely, undeniably already extraordinary. We'll leave you with this. In a world where a fabricated billion-dollar contract spreads faster than a genuine Grand Slam win, where the fake version of an athlete can reach more people than the real one, what does that tell us about the systems we've built around sports, around celebrity, around the athletes we claim to love? Is the machine designed to protect them, or to consume them? Eala never signed a billion-dollar deal. She didn't need to. What she signed in every match, every ranking climb, every quiet return to the practice court after a difficult loss, was a commitment that no algorithm can manufacture and no fabrication can replicate. A promise to a country that someone from the Philippines could stand on the biggest courts in the world, not just to compete, to belong. The internet caught fire with lies about her, and when the smoke cleared, she was exactly where she always is. On the court, working, rising, real. Nobody had to make that story up. If the truth behind this story hit harder than the headlines did, drop a comment below. We read them all. Subscribe if you want the stories behind the drama, the facts the viral posts bury, and the real narratives that deserve to be told. New videos every week. Don't miss what's coming.